Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Amanda has written in and said, if you recall, it was a couple of weeks ago that she was saying that she was without services for a while, and I about lost my mind. But she says, we found another center for my son to attend. The BCBA is very thorough, and we are on the same page for treatment planning, which is a woohoo. They're also male, which is great for my 14-year-old son. He's never had a male BCBA. My issue is he's not on their side, on the medical side. He for sure doesn't believe in the gut-brain connection. He just isn't there. Any feedback on how we can politely educate him and let him know food interactions are at the center, are infractions, excuse me, are at the center are a major deal for us. I know this is like, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Yeah. So this is a big deal, and it concerns me. It's a little sad. I would, you know, when you were learning about the importance of all the biomedical interventions and diets, you were reading a lot of stuff. So I would recommend that you gift him some of those things that were meaningful to you. Now, there's such a huge library of things that you could read nowadays that talk about not just the gut-brain connection, but I mean the whole concept of leaky gut and so on goes back now more than 20 years. There's publications for the past 20 years on this subject. An easy place where, if you want to focus on the food infractions, an easy place to find really good articles is if you go on Julie Matthews' website, which is Nourishing Hope. If you look that up, she's got a bunch of stuff on there that you can print. There's also, if you go on the Autism Research Institute website, they have a lot of stuff on there as well that you can print and give him. Published, peer-reviewed journals. And then also, since he's a BCBA, tell him when he goes to the next Association for Behavior Analysis conference, ABAI. It's in May every year, and most BCBAs go there. So we have like thousands of BCBAs going because that's where you get all your continuing education and you go to all these different presentations. Make sure that he goes to the one that is supported by my endowment. It's in my name. The Doreen Granpeesheh Endowment funds a biomedical presentation at ABAI every year. I believe this year we have Dr. 𝗃𝗵𝗏𝗰𝗸, who is a physician, very, very well known. He is at Harvard Mass General Hospital. He's a gastroenterologist, and he will be talking about the gut-brain interaction and how there's, you know, BCBAs often will respect the journal article, the journal called Pediatrics. And years ago, a group of people and we did a series of presentations on it that were published in Pediatrics. There's a really, really good article about how the gastrointestinal, all different types of gastrointestinal issues influence autism and how they interact with autism. So literature, the conference, ABAI conference, and you know, on the Autism Research Institute, you can even watch presentations live because they have a lot of videos on there.
Yeah. But I also want to say,
education.
I want to say, you know, there is a thing. There is a stigma. And it's ingrained. Yeah. I just came back from the ABAI Autism Conference a couple of weeks ago. And I was on a panel, and then I said, when the panel was over, that I would stay as long as I needed to answer questions. And I stood there for hours and answered people's questions. And there was one set of BCBAs, the wonderful, wonderful BCBAs, who came up and said, we need your help. We've got a parent who really believes in that gluten-free, casein-free thing, and how do we get them away from that?
I know.
And I said, well, okay, I don't think you're going to like my answer. And I said, but let me ask you something. You know, were you here last night? Did you go to the bar? Did you have anything to drink? And they're like, well, yeah, we did. I had a glass of wine, I had a drink. And I said,
How did you feel
how did
today?
you feel afterwards?
Yeah.
And did your ability to communicate and function change at all based on what you had to drink? And they were like, well, yeah. And I was like, why do you feel like this child would be any different?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, that's alcohol. And I said, okay, do any of you have any food allergies or any food sensitivities? Because, I'm allergic to wheat. Any of you? And one of them was like, oh, I'm allergic to shellfish. And I said, and so what would happen if you had shellfish? Would your ability to communicate and learn and, cope, would it change at all? Why do you feel that this child is different than you?
Yeah.
And I said, maybe the problem isn't that the mom is holding on to that.
The problem, Shannon, sorry to interrupt you, but the problem is that it's so ingrained, and they will continue to say there's no scientific research, where there is.
Yes.
There's a lot of scientific research. You just have to look at it, you know?
Yes, and I made that point to them too, but I said, let's just all start from the place of looking at this individual, because you have taught me that. Let's just look at the individual. Can we just look at this child? And I said, maybe you should give mom a half of a benefit of a doubt that maybe the child has had some reaction as a result of that, and then just listen to her. Like, it doesn't stop you from
exactly.
It doesn't stop you from doing the behavioral intervention that you want to do. It means that you can't feed him pretzels.
Yes.
Like, get over it.
Exactly.
I didn't say that, but that is what I want. I said, maybe you should look at it in a different way, because there are gluten-free pretzels that you can buy in almost every minute. If the pretzels are really the issue, what is the difficulty that you are having with mom wanting to be on a gluten-free diet? Is it that the snacks have to be managed when they're on break? Then just manage the snacks.
Yeah.
Like, come on, it's just not. But and they were like, oh, that wasn't the answer we thought you were. And I said, I told you, you weren't going to really like what I had to say.
This is the other thing, Shannon, that this is actually it's interesting, because the reason that when we built skills, which was also kind of our tracking system, I put in this specific area of skills, which I thought was brilliant. It was my favorite. It was my favorite graph. And it was for this purpose, because a lot of what I was seeing, other people were not seeing. And what I saw was that whenever there was an infraction, there was a change in behavior. And so we had this, all the data that BCBAs take on their iPads, and BTs take, all the RBTs and all the therapists take on the iPads, or however they do it. When you graph it, and it's always with ABA, it's always a line graph, and it shows mainly two things. Or one is how fast the child's learning, so rate of acquisition, and it's a line graph, and hopefully it's going up over time. And then the other graph is challenging behavior, and those are hopefully going down over time. And when you have an infraction, this graph that I had made, it was called the clinical timeline, you would input infraction just on a day. Today the person had milk, today they had bread, whatever it was, and you would immediately see that those things changed. Like the rate of acquisition went down, the person wasn't able to learn in that few days or a week, and they became aggressive, or some other challenging behavior just suddenly shot up. So we had verifiable proof that these infractions were impacting the individual. And so that's what you tell the BCBAs is, do me a favor and track his behaviors, and I won't tell you. I mean, it's horrible to do that to your own child, but it's like people, they just don't believe it until they see it.
Yeah. Yes, it's a thing. I'm gonna move on and hope that you find the way. But I will say that for me, because I have so many allergens and things, what I eventually did was said to people, this is a food allergy and you have to treat it thus, because then it becomes a legal thing. If you feel like you're not making any headway, just say there's an allergy and so on and so forth. Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.